I wasn't expecting the call. I never am, but this one was different. When the phone rang, I saw James's name flash across the screen. My heart skipped a beat, a mixture of dread and surprise rushing through me. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not really. He'd moved on, I had moved on, or so I thought. But there it was. His name, taunting me with memories of a time long past. I answered it, a tightness settling in my chest. Hello? The voice on the other end was calm but heavy with something I couldn't place. Emma, I'm so sorry to inform you, but James passed away this morning. It was sudden. A heart attack. I don't remember much after that. The world seemed to tilt, the voice on the other end of the line becoming a distant hum. My knees buckled, and I crumpled to the floor, clutching the phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. Tears surged, uninvited, burning my face as they fell. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. James was gone. My first love, the man who had once been everything to me, was gone. The finality of it hit me harder than I anticipated. I didn't hear Luke come into the room, didn't hear the door creak open or the shuffle of his footsteps as he approached me. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart and the ringing in my ears. When his hand touched my shoulder, I flinched. I hadn't even realized I was shaking until his voice, soft and concerned, reached me. Emma? What's going on? Who was that? I struggled to get words out, my throat tight, chest tight. James, he's dead, I managed to choke out. Luke froze, his hand still on my shoulder, but I could feel his confusion. I had never really talked about James, not in any significant way. I hadn't shared the depth of what he meant to me, not to Luke, not to anyone. It was like I had tucked that part of myself away, locked it in a room I never opened. He knelt down beside me, his hand now gripping mine. His voice was gentle, but there was an edge of something else, something like hurt, like he was trying to make sense of what I was feeling. You're crying for him, for your ex? His tone was careful, as though he didn't want to say the wrong thing, but I could hear the hurt beneath it. He must have been wondering what that meant. Why was I so devastated? Why did it feel like I was losing him all over again? I don't know, I said, barely able to get the words out. I never imagined this. Never thought he'd be gone. My voice cracked, the weight of the years I spent with James suddenly rushing back to me. I felt ashamed of my tears, as if Luke would think they were a betrayal, as if he would think they meant I had never loved him in the first place. But how could I explain it to him? How could I make him understand? Luke stood up, pulling me with him, his grip on me a little too tight, like he was trying to anchor himself, too. Emma, you need to calm down. I get that this is unexpected, but you're with me now. I'm here. We're together. I nodded, not really sure what to say. I didn't know how to explain the grief that was washing over me, the tidal wave of emotions that seemed to have no logical explanation. It wasn't just that James had died, it was the fact that his death had triggered something deep inside me that I thought I had buried. It was the loss of the man I once loved and the realization that I hadn't fully moved on from him. I didn't know how to reconcile those feelings with the love I had for Luke. I know. It feels like a part of me died with him. The words escaped before I could stop them, and immediately, I regretted them. I could see the hurt in Luke's eyes as he pulled away from me, his expression shifting. I knew what he was thinking. He was wondering if I still loved James, if that love was still there, buried beneath the surface. If my emotions over James's death were a sign that I hadn't fully committed to him. I didn't blame him for thinking that way. After all, who wouldn't wonder about their partner's feelings when they saw them breaking down over an ex? But the truth was, I didn't know how to explain it. How could I explain the deep ache I felt for a man who had once been everything to me? And how could I make Luke see that this didn't diminish my love for him, that the grief wasn't about longing for James, but about the realization that I never fully let go of the past? I need some time, Luke said quietly, his voice distant. I need to process this. Luke, please, I begged, but my voice cracked again, betraying me. I don't want you to think that this means I don't love you. It's not like that. It's just, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to feel this way. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he stepped back, running a hand through his hair. The silence between us felt like a chasm, growing wider with every passing second. Finally, he looked at me, his face hardening, the hurt still evident in his eyes. I just don't get it, Emma, he said, his voice shaking slightly. You've been with me for years, and I thought I was the one you wanted. But you're falling apart over him. I don't know what to think. I don't know if I can do this. The words hit me like a slap, the finality of them leaving me breathless. I wanted to explain, to tell him that I loved him, that he was my present and my future. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if he would believe me, not after seeing me like this. Not after seeing me fall apart over someone else. I never meant for you to feel like this, I whispered, but it felt like the words didn't matter anymore. The damage had been done. As Luke walked away, I felt a chill settle in my chest. I didn't know how to fix this, how to convince him that my past wasn't a threat to our future. All I knew was that I had lost something that day, something I wasn't sure I could get back. And I wasn't sure if Luke would ever be able to look at me the same way again. The next few days felt like they were stretching on forever. Every minute I spent in our apartment felt heavier, like I was suffocating beneath a weight I couldn't explain. Luke and I had barely spoken since that day, and when we did, it was always strained, like we were walking on eggshells around each other. I couldn't blame him. I had made it clear, in the most painful way possible, that a part of me still belonged to someone else. I tried to distract myself. I threw myself into work, hoping the constant noise of the office would drown out the constant ache in my chest. But it didn't. Every phone call, every email, every meeting felt like it was happening in a distant, muffled reality. The only thing I could focus on was the fact that, at the end of the day, I'd be returning to the apartment where Luke and I were no longer the couple we once were. I had made a mess of everything. That night, after another cold, silent dinner together, Luke spoke. His voice was flat, devoid of the warmth that had once filled our conversations. "Do you need anything from me?" he asked, his eyes not meeting mine. "I can give you space if that's what you want. I don't know what else to do right now." I wanted to scream, to tell him that I didn't need space, that what I needed was for him to understand the complexity of my emotions. But the words stuck in my throat, and all I could manage was a weak nod. I didn't know what I wanted either, not really. All I knew was that the distance between us was growing, and I wasn't sure how to close it. "Luke," I began, my voice trembling. "I never meant for you to feel this way. I don't want to lose you." He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Then why does it feel like you're already gone?" he said quietly. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I felt my breath catch, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. He was right. It did feel like I was already gone. I had allowed my grief, my memories of James, to take center stage in my life, and now Luke was paying the price. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the guilt flooding me again. "I didn't realize how much this was affecting you." Of course it's affecting me, Emma, Luke said, standing up and running a hand through his hair. You're grieving for your ex. And I'm standing here, trying to be understanding, but I don't know if I can keep pretending like everything's fine. I'm not pretending, I replied, my voice a little stronger now. I'm not pretending to be fine, Luke. But I don't know how to make this better. I don't know how to make you understand that my love for you is real. That I am committed to you. Luke's face softened a little, but there was still a distance between us that seemed impossible to cross. It doesn't feel that way, Emma. You're not just mourning his death. You're mourning the relationship you had with him. I can see it in the way you look at me, the way you avoid touching me. It's like you're not here, not really. I felt the sting of his words, but I couldn't argue with them. I wasn't fully here. Every time I looked at Luke, I saw the man I had built a life with, but I also saw the ghost of James, hovering just beyond my reach, reminding me of a past I wasn't ready to let go of. I don't know what you want me to say, I said, my voice breaking. I'm not trying to push you away. I swear I'm not. But this grief, it's not something I can just switch off. It's not something I can ignore, especially now that he's gone. Maybe I don't need you to switch it off, Luke said, his voice quiet. But I need you to be here. With me. If I'm going to stand by you through this, I need to feel like I matter. Like I'm enough. I didn't know how to make him feel like he was enough. How could I, when part of me was still holding on to a past that wasn't even real anymore? I wanted to reach for him, to pull him into my arms and promise him that everything would be okay. But I wasn't sure how to promise something I wasn't sure I could deliver. Luke, I said softly, my heart heavy. I do need you. More than anything. But I'm lost right now. I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know how to make you see that I'm still here, even if I'm struggling. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine, and for a fleeting second, I thought he might understand. But then his expression hardened again, the walls going back up. Maybe I'm just not the person you need right now, he said, his voice tight. Maybe I'm not the one who can help you through this. The words stung, but I couldn't blame him. I had pushed him to this point. I had let my grief consume me, and now he was questioning whether I could truly love him. Whether I was capable of being the woman he needed. Luke, don't say that, I pleaded, standing up and reaching for him. I need you. Please. I know I've messed up, but I'm not ready to lose you. He pulled away, shaking his head. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Emma. I don't know if I can keep watching you fall apart over someone who isn't even here anymore. You need to figure out what you want, because right now, it's not clear to me. I felt the tears start to rise again, but I held them back, refusing to let him see just how broken I was. I don't want to lose you, I said again, my voice trembling with desperation. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned and walked toward the door, his back to me. I need space, Emma, he said, his voice distant. I need time to figure out if this is something I can keep fighting for. I watched him leave, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. The weight of his words settled in, and for the first time in days, I realized just how much I had taken him for granted. Just how much I had ignored the person who had been standing beside me all this time, loving me even when I wasn't fully present. And now, I wasn't sure if I could get him back. The apartment was eerily silent when I woke up the next morning. The space felt different now, empty, almost hollow. Luke hadn't come home the night before. I knew he had left, but hearing it from him had still stung. It had been days since that conversation, and I could feel the tension hanging in the air, thick like smoke that wouldn't clear. I sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly stirring my coffee, but I wasn't really tasting it. My thoughts were too clouded by what had happened between us, by the sharp edge of his words. Was he really considering leaving? Could our marriage be at its end, just like that? The truth of it hit me hard, and I felt a tightness in my chest. I knew I was to blame. I had been so consumed by my grief that I hadn't noticed the quiet unraveling of my relationship. Luke had tried to reach out to me, to talk, but I had been too wrapped up in my own sorrow to hear him. Now, I wondered if it was too late. I hadn't heard from him since the night he walked out. No texts, no calls. Just the silence between us, heavy and suffocating. I reached for my phone, hoping to see a message, something that would tell me we could still fix this. But there was nothing. Not a single word. A part of me felt foolish for expecting him to reach out first, as if I had somehow earned that. But I knew deep down I hadn't. It was me who had pulled away. Me who had let my past, James, cling to me like a shadow. Luke didn't deserve that. The guilt gnawed at me. Every moment spent apart from him felt like a reminder of how far I had let us drift. I couldn't stop thinking about his face when he said he didn't know if he could keep doing this. I couldn't stop hearing the hurt in his voice, the pain that came from feeling like he wasn't enough. I had told him I needed him, but I hadn't shown him that I meant it. I picked up my phone again, this time scrolling through the messages from work that I had ignored all morning. There were emails, meetings to arrange, things to deal with, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept going back to Luke. What if he didn't come back? What if he was already moving on? The idea of that, of losing him forever, felt like a physical blow. I had made so many mistakes, and now I was paying the price for them. I stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the city below. It was a gray day, the clouds hanging low in the sky, mirroring the heaviness in my chest. The streets were busy with people going about their lives, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I envied them. They had no idea what it was like to feel like you were losing everything you cared about. To feel like you were standing on the edge, watching everything crumble, and knowing you were the one who had set the fire. I couldn't stay in this limbo. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay when it wasn't. I needed to fix this, to prove to Luke that I still cared, that I still loved him even if it felt like I was drowning in a sea of regrets. The door opened behind me, and I turned to see Luke standing there. He was back. He hadn't been gone long, just a night, but the distance between us felt like it had been years. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice stiff but quieter than I expected. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Okay. He stepped into the apartment, his eyes scanning the room as if trying to figure out where to begin. His face was tired, drawn, and I could see the signs of sleepless nights. His expression softened for just a moment before the walls went back up, the familiar barrier I had seen before. I've been thinking, Luke started, his hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the floor. And I can't keep doing this. I don't know if you're ever going to come back to me. And I don't know if I can keep waiting for something that might not happen. His words were blunt, but I could hear the vulnerability beneath them. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, a mix of sorrow and regret. I had pushed him to this point. I had let him feel like he wasn't enough. I'm sorry, Luke, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted to make you feel that way. I never wanted to hurt you. But I don't know how to get over this. How to get over him. Luke's eyes met mine, and I could see the flicker of pain there. I'm not asking you to get over him. I'm asking you to choose us. To choose me. I've been standing here, trying to be patient, trying to understand. But I need more than that. I need to know that you want to be with me. That you see me. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to tell him how much I loved him. How much I needed him. But it wasn't just about saying it. I had to show him. I had to prove that I was still here, that I was willing to fight for us. I do see you, Luke. I do want to be with you, I said, stepping toward him. But I've been holding on to something that's gone. And I know it's not fair to you. I'm sorry for making you feel like I was holding back. But I want to fix this. I want to be with you. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he just stared at me for a long moment, as if weighing my words. The tension between us was palpable, but there was something else there too. A small spark of hope. I'm willing to try, he said quietly, his voice almost hesitant. But it's going to take time, Emma. I can't just forget how this has made me feel. I need you to show me that you're still here. That you're really here. I will, I promised, my heart pounding in my chest. I'll prove it to you. I need you to give me a chance. He nodded slowly, and for the first time in days, the weight in my chest seemed to lift just a little. It wasn't fixed. We weren't fixed. But we had taken a step. A small step, but a step nonetheless. I'll try, Luke said, his voice softening. But don't make me regret it. I won't, I said, my heart full of emotion. I swear, I won't. He gave me a long look before turning and heading toward the door. We'll talk more later, he said over his shoulder. I just need some time to think. I watched him leave, a strange mixture of relief and fear swirling inside me. I had a second chance, but it was fragile. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to fight for him, for us. I just hoped it wasn't too late. The day passed in a blur. I didn't know if I should be relieved that Luke was willing to give us another chance or terrified that we were already so far gone that it wouldn't matter. Every minute felt like an eternity, each one stretching between us, filled with unsaid words and unresolved feelings. I spent the afternoon trying to occupy my mind with work, anything to keep myself from overthinking, but I couldn't stop replaying that moment in the hallway, when he had walked out and then returned, when he had said he was willing to try again. What did that mean for us? Was it really a fresh start, or were we just putting off the inevitable? The thought of losing him had been unbearable, but could we really fix this? The apartment felt like a stranger's place without him here. The quiet was deafening. I found myself wandering through the rooms, picking up things that didn't need picking up, just searching for something to focus on. My hands moved instinctively, but my mind was a million miles away. When the door opened that evening, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was still shaken by our earlier conversation, still unsure of what lay ahead. Luke stepped inside, his face more relaxed than it had been earlier, but there was still an edge to him, something guarded in the way he looked at me. "Hey," he said, his voice soft but steady. "Hi," I replied, my heart racing. I didn't know what to say next. It had been a long day, filled with silence and uncertainty, but now that he was back, all I could think about was the space between us. We stood there for a moment, neither of us moving, both of us unsure of how to bridge the gap that had formed between us. Finally, Luke took a step forward, his hands in his pockets, his eyes searching mine. "I thought a lot about what you said earlier," he began, his voice hesitant. "About needing me to choose us. And I know I haven't been the best at that. I've been distant, not really giving you what you needed. And I'm sorry for that." I swallowed hard, trying to process his words. It was hard to hear him take responsibility for some of the distance between us, because I knew I had contributed too. But it felt like a step in the right direction, like we were finally acknowledging the things that had been left unspoken for so long. "I'm sorry, too," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I've been holding on to my past for far too long. And I've let it affect us. I haven't been fair to you, Luke. I've made you feel like you weren't enough, and that's the last thing I ever wanted." Luke's eyes softened, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the man I had fallen in love with, the one who had always been patient and understanding, the one who had always believed in us. But then the walls went back up, and the distance returned, however small. "I don't want to fight about this anymore," he said quietly. "I don't want to keep going in circles, trying to figure out who's to blame. I just want to know that we're moving forward." "I want that too," I whispered, stepping closer to him. "I want to move forward with you. But I need you to know that I'm not perfect. I'm still dealing with my past, and I'm still figuring things out. But I'm here. I want to be here. With you." Luke didn't respond right away. He looked at me for a long time, his gaze intense, like he was trying to gauge whether or not I truly meant it. The silence between us felt like a weight, pressing down on me, but I didn't break it. I had to show him that I was committed, that I was ready to fight for us, no matter what it took. Finally, Luke nodded, his shoulders relaxing just a little. "I know you are," he said softly. "I know you want this. And I want it, too. But we have to be honest with each other. We have to be open, or we're not going to make it." "I can do that," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "I will be honest with you, Luke. I promise." For the first time in a long time, we were speaking the same language. No more hiding behind walls, no more pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. We were both in this, together, facing the mess we had created and the love that had been lost somewhere along the way. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared that we won't make it, that we won't be able to fix this. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Luke took a deep breath, his expression softening as he stepped closer to me. He reached out, his hand brushing against my cheek, a gentle touch that sent a shiver through me. "We'll figure it out," he said quietly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know we have to take it one step at a time. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We just have to keep trying." I closed my eyes for a moment, letting his words wash over me. The fear, the uncertainty, it was still there, lingering in the background, but it didn't feel quite as overwhelming now. There was still hope, still a chance that we could rebuild what we had lost. "I'm ready," I whispered. "I'm ready to take that step with you." Luke nodded, his fingers gently brushing my hair back from my face. His touch was warm, reassuring. It felt like a promise, one that we both needed to hear. "I'm ready, too," he said, his voice low and steady. "But it's not going to be easy. We're going to have to work for it. But I'm willing to do that. For you. For us." I smiled, a small but sincere smile. It wasn't the kind of smile that solved everything, but it was a start. A sign that we were both willing to put in the effort, even if it meant facing the painful parts of ourselves we had been avoiding. Luke took my hand in his, and together, we stood there, the silence between us no longer suffocating but filled with the quiet understanding that we were both willing to try. For the first time in what felt like forever, we were on the same page. It wasn't perfect, but maybe that was okay. Maybe we didn't need perfection. We just needed each other. And that, for now, was enough. I ask everyone who likes our content to subscribe to the channel. It will help us a lot, and it will be a pleasure to have you here with us.